All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining for another episode of Save Yourself. Today, we are going to go in deep with Dr. Singh, who is here to talk to us about the science of this amazing compound called Urolithin A. And we're going to be talking about gut health in general and about postbiotics, which I don't think a lot of us talk about. We talk about prebiotics, we talk about probiotics, but we really don't talk about postbiotics and why this compound may be so important in longevity. So I'm so excited to talk to Dr. Singh. Thank you so much for joining us from the sunny, is it sunny there?
Yeah, it
Switzerland?
is. It is. It is sunny in Switzerland. Yeah.
um, yeah, I think this is like the best time of year, right?
Yeah. I prefer summers in Switzerland than winters, sure.
Yeah, unless you're a skier, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. I think a lot of people don't even know anything about urolithin A. So let's just start from the
Sure.
beginning. First of all, I want to hear a little bit about you. What got you interested in this world? And what do you do?
Mhm.
Kind of what is your role in all of this?
Sure. So I'm trained in internal medicine, trained in India, then spent about 6, 7 years in the US training further. And then I got interested in research. One of my mentors was a medical doctor, and he said, "Well, you can't do part-time research. You got to switch if you really want to do research, Anurag. You have to switch." And so I ended up doing a PhD in allergy and immunology at University of Connecticut. So and then I was working on the field of food allergies and asthma, and I got a call from a company in Switzerland that was very interested in working with physicians who had some research background in that field. So ended up in Switzerland about 16 years back. Worked with this company, which is the biggest FMCG company, and was making hypoallergenic foods for kids. And
Oh, wow.
somehow from there, over 16 years, I got moved to another division of this company called, well, it was Nestle, and they were starting a medical food where they wanted to tackle the aging society and sarcopenia and things like this. So I was really running clinical trials all around the world, US, India, Canada. And then about 9.5 years back, two professors from a local Swiss university, well, local, I say, but it's one of the top, it's actually like the Swiss MIT. They said,
Nice.
well, we found a compound where we don't know it works great in worms and mice. We really need somebody like you. And so, yeah, I moved from a 300,000 company to becoming the chief medical officer of this company and really designing all the clinical trials that have led to, 10 plus years of research.
Amazing. So I think I know kind of some of the original research that was done in worms, and but I would love for you to explain to everyone, what is this compound and
Sure.
what was the initial kind of discovery that made it so exciting?
So the company Timeline was actually was spun out of the Swiss Institute of Technology, and was spun out of with this idea to create sort of the Genentech of the nutrition space, to really bring like the biotech approach to nutrition. A lot of times nutrition companies were just blending vitamins, minerals, probiotics, prebiotics, and just launching products, without really understanding how the science was happening behind these. And so the idea was to deconstruct a lot of these superfoods like pomegranate and berries and things like this. And so we started looking at the pomegranate, and we found they had a pomegranate had 500 bioactive compounds that we call polyphenols. And so we started looking at them, and we even found that pomegranates from Spain were different from pomegranates from Israel or pomegranates from India, and the bioactive compounds would differ. And all that in a nutshell led to the discovery that actually it was not the bioactives in the pomegranate, but when you eat the pomegranate or the berries, your gut microbiome actually digests them and releases even simpler compounds. And these are called postbiotics. And one of them, the main one that was responsible for all the health benefits, was this molecule called urolithin A. That's how it all started.
So that's the initial thing. And what does urolithin A do? I guess that's a good segue to kind of introduce
Mhm.
to people.
Yeah, sure. So this is a molecule. So a lot of us have lost the gut microbiome over time. Typically, myself is a great example. I'm born in India, a lot of antibiotics. My gut microbiome never really recovered. I can drink 6 glasses of pomegranate juice. My body just refuses to make. So we run studies where about 30-40% people, healthy adults, of course, make this molecule in different amounts. And what we started seeing was that actually this compound, when you gave it to worms or to older rodents or to in randomized clinical trials to older adults, it was inducing a process we call mitophagy in the cells. So what happens during the aging process is that our cells they get slow, the metabolism slows down, and they accumulate what we call faulty mitochondria. And these faulty mitochondria, there's a process set in place in our bodies to remove these faulty mitochondria, and that's called mitophagy. It just means clearing up of bad mitochondria. And so what happens with aging is this process slows down. And so what happens with aging is essentially all diseases like Parkinson's disease is actually a disease of faulty mitochondria. Alzheimer's, now they're saying it's actually also linked to poor mitochondrial health. Sarcopenia is another one. And so what we found this compound was doing is it would rev up this cleaning process of mitophagy. So, when you grow old, the trash bin pickup van that comes to your house, it stops coming to your house and you have a lot of trash accumulating. And so this molecule just makes sure that the trash van is coming and you're keeping your house clean. Well, in this case, the cells clean. And that's how it works. That's what mitophagy is.
I think a lot of people are familiar with the word autophagy because of the interest in intermittent fasting. So for those of you who don't know autophagy, when there's no more food coming into your cells, no more glucose coming into your cells, like during prolonged fasting, you start to really turn up the autophagy that's happening in your cell, kind of cellular clean out. Now it's always happening. It just gets turned up when you are doing a fast. So what's the difference between autophagy and mitophagy?
Yeah, autophagy is basically sort of the cleanup. Autophagy meaning, it's the self-eating or self-cleanup of the whole cell. Mitophagy is a autophagy very specific to mitochondria. And we've done studies comparing the level of autophagy or mitophagy induction with urolithin A compared to intermittent fasting or caloric restriction in these models, and it's very similar. So exercise or regular exercise would be another way to induce autophagy, mitophagy, intermittent fasting for sure. But again, till we had discovered urolithin A, there was not a single natural molecule that had been shown to induce mitophagy.
So there are people that can make their own urolithin A through their gut bacteria, correct? Right?
Yes.
So, and what you're saying, just to make it clear for everyone who's listening, that urolithin A kind of has the same effect on your cells that intermittent fasting and exercise do in terms of cellular clean out. And I think that's what made it so interesting to me because, there's a lot of interest. Obviously, we know the benefits of exercise. There's been a lot of interest on time restricted eating and also intermittent fasting, which sometimes are used interchangeably, but then this new compound, not really new, obviously, it's a polyphenol based compound, but this postbiotic, is that the right way to say it? It's a postbiotic?
Indeed.
Urolithin A, and it's naturally occurring, and it happens when you eat certain foods like pomegranate, but only 30 to 40% of people actually can make it on their own. Is that kind of the right estimate? And the rest of the population, because we don't have the correct gut bacteria, we cannot make it at all, or is it that we can't make adequate levels of it?
Yeah, so even in the 30-40% that make it, we've looked at what I call the people who are blessed. So they're eating right, they have the gut microbiome, and that allows them to make this molecule naturally versus the ones that are not blessed like me, right? In this case, the 60% that can still think they're eating right, but their gut microbiome is shot. So so you need to have a very rich and diverse gut microbiome. We've actually sequenced the gut microbiome of those who make it versus those who don't make it. And they're rich in things like Akkermansia and a lot of, the beneficial sort of the gut bacteria that are linked to better metabolic health. But the main thing to remember is that about 60-70% are not getting direct exposure to this great molecule. Those of us who can and should try to, take it from the food and dietary sources, the levels are very variable. So some of us or those who are getting it, make very little amounts of it, which are, in my opinion, are not enough if you think from a therapeutic health benefit perspective. And so this is a molecule that is endogenously produced, is natural, is safe. So if you're eating a lot of healthy foods and taking a lot of fermented fiber, etc., you will make this molecule. So that's the right way, as you summarized.
Okay, so say we're sold on urolithin A in terms of like, wow, I want to get more urolithin A in my life. So what are the ways that someone who's listening should, what are the different ways that we can raise our urolithin A levels both naturally and through other, entities?
Mm-hmm. So naturally, I guess you would have to eat a bowl full of raspberries, which is another great source of
Yeah.
these polyphenols, or drink a glass of pomegranate juice. The problem there is you'll also get a lot of sugar if you're,
Mm.
fasting and things like this. So that would be one way, eating a lot of fruits and nuts and eating fermented foods and taking the, let's say, probiotics that could aid in the conversion. That would be the natural way. And then sort of the way we have figured out to short circuit this natural process, or sort of the imprecise natural process for a lot of us, is by giving direct supplementation with a calibrated dose of urolithin A that we call mitopure.
So when you take urolithin A through, say, a calibrated dose like Mitopure,
Mhm.
what kind of effects does it have in the trial? Like, based on the trials, like
Sure.
what can people expect to see or feel? Because I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed with the amount of things we should be doing or taking or exercise, the exercise you should be doing, the morning routine. So what are the things that people can expect? And I think what I love about what we're talking about here is that there's science around it. I think a lot
Mhm.
of things we talk about eating and doing, it's kind of like, someone said you should do it, but there's really no science backing it.
Sure.
So I would love to talk about kind of the science around this.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned at the start, we've been at it for 10 plus years. I've overseen almost now 15 randomized clinical trials on this molecule, about 1,000 plus participants. The first trial started out with older adults, 70 plus years, because it's known that mitochondrial dysfunction sets in around
Mm.
that time in organs that are very metabolically active, such as the skeletal muscle, which is, the muscle is a very key longevity organ. So at that time, we were looking at 70-year-olds who were exercising versus 70-year-olds who were very sedentary. And we found that mitochondria health was very poor in those who were very sedentary. So we took them and we randomized them into a placebo control trial, where the group that took the placebo for 4 weeks, there was no change in their mitochondrial health. The group that took 500 milligram to a gram of urolithin A or mitopure, we started seeing the mitochondria going from bad to good, meaning that, now instead of faulty, poor mitochondria, in about 4 weeks, we could turn them back into energetic, healthy, newer mitochondria. So the way we do it is we take little pieces of, punch biopsies of the skeletal muscle, and that allows us to deeply look at the mitochondria. But we have now developed tools to look at blood cells, and they give us the same profile. If you went longer, we did then longer trials in the older adults for 2 to 4 months. That's when you start to see physiological and really, benefits and better endurance, for example. So older adults, if they're given a single task like a leg press test, after a while they get fatigued. But on the urolithin A supplementation, they went 20% longer. And so, these are the kind of
Wow.
benefits, but it takes time. It's not a magic pill, That's what
Yeah. So
exercise is. Yeah.
So you have to do the exercises. So in that study, for example, if you want to increase your leg strength by 20%, your leg press weights, and you're an older adult and you're starting on this journey, you would have to take what, 500 milligrams to a gram of your urolithin A every day, and also do a weight training session, what, 3 times a week? Is that something that or is that what you would recommend? And then how long did it take to see a difference? Just so we can give specific time markings.
Yeah, I mean, so mitochondrial health takes, as I say, it's a marathon to improve it,
Yeah.
right? And it's a marathon, because we see that people who exercise all their life, they have the best mitochondrial health,
Hmm.
and so it takes about 2 to 4 months of regular intake to start seeing the benefits on improved strength, or better endurance, or better. A lot of people tell me they see better recovery after an exercise. So, people see in about a month, they won't, the body takes time to clear out the waste and get better, healthy mitochondria. And this we know by looking at biomarkers, but it does take about 2 to 4 months of regular intake to see an effect.
But that's incredible because I think that most people believe that after the age of 70 or, at an older age, it's really difficult to build strength, to build muscle, to add mitochondria. And so this is really, really promising in the world of longevity. What are the other things that you've seen besides, say, leg strength, you might expect with a higher level of urolithin A?
So I'm a trained immunologist, and for long I have believed that there's a very close connection between your mitochondrial health and your sort of immune status. And so one of the hallmarks of every trial we have seen is, in addition to improved mitochondrial health, we see the inflammation go down. So not go away, but it's sort of there's a close link. So the more damaged mitochondria you have, the more inflammation you have. And that's sort of the emerging axis of research that is coming around. And so by cleaning out these bad mitochondria, now you have less of these, faulty mitochondria triggering inflammation in your body. And so one of the other cool readouts we see, which people can look, is something called C-reactive protein, for example. In all our trials, in 2 to 4 months, we see older adults are inflamed, overweight adults are inflamed, and we see the levels of CRP go down significantly.
I love that. By the way, I have my fellowship is in allergy immunology as well. And so I'm internal medicine trained and also allergy immunology trained. And I think my big interest in this world of nutrition started more undergraduate because I was graduated from the nutrition school. But the interplay between nutrition and immunology has always been so fascinating to me. So I think this fact is, for people who don't realize, a little bit of inflammation is good. Like acute inflammation is good. You hurt yourself, you want your body to fix it. So acute inflammation is good. What we're talking about is that chronic, lingering inflammation that leads to pretty much all the chronic diseases and also to looking older, feeling older, all of those things. And so what you're saying is supplementing with this urolithin A can actually likely, reduce the chronic inflammation that we have in our body, which is huge. How about longevity? How does it affect kind of length of life, if at all? Have you looked at that?
Yeah, so longevity is a space where you have two camps today, right? You have one which says, oh, we want to have bigger lifespans, right?
Yeah.
And live 120, 150 and beyond. And then there's a camp in which we fall in, which is, keep your health span better when you're in your 70s and 80s. If you can be functional, move around, play with your grandkids, that's what you want to do. If and so we have approached the, mitochondrial dysfunction is a key hallmark of aging. And I think if you look at all the other hallmarks of aging, like epigenetic alterations or poor nutrient, status, the one that is most amenable to intervention, if I was to think from a sort of physician scientist perspective, is mitochondrial health. So if you could improve your mitochondrial health, and we see all the other pathways also affected. And so in one of our trials, we have started measuring actually biological age, which basically is a way to measure your cellular health. And so in some of our trials, we are implementing this in the most recent trial, which is still unpublished. We see about a lowering of median age of about 2 years. So in about 55-year-olds, we see a median age of about 2 years going down after a month or 2 months of supplementation.
I think that's exciting because I think we're all trying to, one, improve our health span. So, how active and functional we are for as long as we can be. But I think being able to improve that is really exciting. In the US, as the health span is a big issue here because, people will live the last 10 years of their life being with low function, sometimes in a nursing home, sometimes not able to walk, not able to do the things that they want to do. So I think I'm in the camp of we want to extend, we want longevity, but not at the expense of health span. What's the point of living a long life if it's not a healthy life where you're mobile and doing the things that you enjoy? So doing things like improving your urolithin A is really cool. Now, what is it that urolithin A actually, if you can kind of explain the actual mechanism? So, what is happening in our gut? Say you eat a whole bowl of pomegranate, or you take mitopure. What actually happens?
Let's think of a mitochondrial life cycle in that, just to describe that. So when we are young, we have more healthy mitochondria and we have less damaged mitochondria. And so we are getting a lot of energy. Our energy reserves are very high. As we start aging, the balance starts shifting more sort to an even Steven, right? You have just about the right level of healthy versus not healthy. And when we get to the 60s, 70s, sort of the fulcrum shifts to in favor of the poor mitochondria, and the less are the healthy mitochondria. So when you drink a glass of pomegranate juice or you take mitopure, the gut microbiome, if you have it, will generate urolithin A, and urolithin A will go and tag the mitochondria that have put out the eat me signal, and that's usually proteins that are Parkin, for example, is a typical protein. And so, that's why there's a disease called Parkinson's disease, where you get a lot of faulty mitochondria in your neuron cells. The body can't clean them out. And that's why this neurodegenerative disease happens. So what mitopure will do is actually go and tag these faulty mitochondria and accelerate their process of getting recycled. Now, these mitochondria will then get recycled and become the building blocks of newer healthy mitochondria, and you will get your energy reserves back. That's kind of what we are seeing in all our trials.
Oh, that's really interesting. So basically, urolithin A is helping identify and tag the faulty mitochondria so we can get rid of them easier and, build new ones. Is that kind of the
that's perfect
summary? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's really exciting because also, would you just tell people, I think there are other ways, exercise being one, that you can build healthy mitochondria, new healthy. Are there other things besides exercise, or are there particular types of exercise that people should concentrate on if they're in this journey of building more mitochondria and getting rid of the faulty ones?
Yeah, sure. So intermittent fasting and regular exercise being a mix of both aerobic and sort of resistant training. They have also looked at different kinds of high interval, resistance training to see effects. And these all kinds of exercise boost mitochondrial function. That's the bottom line. Now, there are other nutrients that are known to improve mitochondrial health through different routes than mitophagy. So there are nutrients like NAD modulators, for example. So these are what we call hit the biogenesis part of the life cycle, meaning they help grow new healthy mitochondria. But again, as I mentioned, it's important to know that the amount of bad mitochondria, unless you clean them out, there's very little space inside a cell to grow new mitochondria. But that's one way to do it. The second way is to boost the efficiency of your currently healthy mitochondria, and there are nutrients that improve the efficiency of these mitochondria, such as coenzyme CoQ10, L-carnitine or creatine. All these nutrients are improving mitochondrial health in different ways.
Here in the US, NAD is a huge, there's a huge interest in it. People are getting infusions, people are taking it in different forms. Do you think kind of a 1-2 punch, I mean, now talking about the mechanism of it, would be, increase your urolithin A levels through supplementation, through eating the right foods, polyphenols, et cetera, and then using a compound like NAD to stimulate the biogenesis of mitochondria? Or is that something that hasn't been looked at, or only theoretically could work?
No, it could work. It has not been looked at in a randomized clinical trial up to today, but we have looked in different models and cell-based systems where if you add urolithin A and you clean out the bad mitochondria, and then as the new mitochondria are coming, if you add NAD modulators, you can really see sort of a synergy happening. So that we know, and of course, there are different companies that sell different nutrients, and so commercially, it's kind of a nightmare to get everybody to agree to do an RCT. But I always think that these nutrients are what I call advanced sort of super nutrients that are the foundation of good cellular health. So if your cellular health is good, you can always keep adding more. Like even your vitamins and minerals will be absorbed better. So a lot of people are taking these supplements, they will be absorbed better just because now your cellular health at the ground roots is stronger.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I think your cellular health really has to be up to, you have to be doing all the things, the dietary, the nutritional strategies, the exercise, the sleep, the stress control, for any of these things to really help and accelerate. I think that is worth mentioning because I get a lot of questions because I talk to a lot of people and I get many, many questions about the right supplement for this, the right tool hack for that, the thing that we should be doing. And I always try to emphasize that none of this is going to work or really get you the place that you want to be if your cellular health is not at the place you want it to be. So you have to eat the right foods, you have to sleep, you have to get the sunlight, you have to do the exercise, and get kind of a great base for all of this to work. I think that's what you're kind of implying by saying, like, get your cellular health, like, up to speed before you can see all these benefits from all these compounds.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've looked at how these mitochondria look like inside a transmission electron microscope from a 70-year-old who's not moving around versus a 70-year-old who moves around. And the difference is mind-boggling because you
Yeah.
really see very nice shaped mitochondria that are producing energy versus really like mitochondria that architecture look like a bunch of spaghetti. So they're hardly
So
producing any
sad.
energy. And so, if you keep that as the foundation of your, in addition to doing good exercise, eating right, and,
Yeah.
I think this would go a long way into improving people's longevity.
Okay, well, that brings me to, of course, a big question that people always want to know when they're listening or watching my podcast is you're in this world. Have been in this world for many years, 10 years in this Urolithin A world, but even longer.
Mhm.
What does your morning routine or look like? And what does your nutrition look like personally?
So personally, I eat two meals and I eat them in a 6 to 8 hour window. So I kind of do, you can call it the 16/8 diet that,
Hmm.
a lot of
Intermittent
fasting
fasting.
people
Uh-huh.
follow. And then I'm a vegetarian, so I tend to supplement with a lot of high protein and creatine. These are the kind of things I supplement. But yeah, I mean, I do again, exercise wise, I'm a bit more for a weekend warrior. So I get time mostly around weekends to
Yeah.
think about, even though I would like to do more. And that's sort of, a lot of times I go on an exercise regimen, but then of course your professional life catches up, and then and that's again where I feel a lot of these advanced nutrients fit in, because you don't want to lose all the benefits of fasting or exercise regimens, and they can sort of be the maintenance sort of pills to keep the health benefits going longer. And so yeah, that's sort of to keep my mitochondria happy. I sleep
Yeah.
better. I try to sleep 6 7 hours every day and keep stress levels lower, and that's about it.
Okay, so you mentioned something that I think a lot of listeners might want to know more about. You mentioned that you eat a vegetarian diet, and I grew up vegetarian as well. What are the things that you supplement with or do in order to make sure that you're getting the right nutrients since you have this
Mhm.
diet restriction?
Yeah, the two top ones are high protein. So you need about a gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. And as you get older into 50s, 60s, 70s, the need goes up even more because you're hitting sort of this anabolic threshold of resistance, and mitochondria are the sites of protein synthesis. So you need to keep, eating protein. So I take high protein supplementation, at least 10 to 20 grams every day. And vitamin D is another top of the list for me, because it's something I think a lot of vegetarian diet folks do not get enough exposure to. And then yeah, that's about it. Maybe a multivitamin sort of supplementation once in a while, but not very regular.
Do you take creatine?
Creatine is in the high protein. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay. So you do a high
Yeah, so the high
protein.
protein shake I have has branched chain amino acids and creatine monohydrate at about
Got it.
3 grams. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, how many grams do you use? And
Yeah, so I think the best, if you look at it or the clinical trial literature, it really works above 2 grams. So you need to be in the 2 to 5 gram window for creatine, and you need to be doing exercise for creatine to be really hitting on your mitochondrial efficiency and improving your muscle and mitochondrial health. So yeah, that's the sweet spot.
that was really helpful because I think there's a good amount of people that, one, are curious about creatine. And do you do creatine because of the mitochondrial effects, or are you doing it for brain health, or are you doing it for something else?
No, I just think if you look at the entire nutrition research, there are very few compounds that have good, solid science and clinical evidence backing them. Creatine is great for muscle strength. It has great for mitochondrial effects, and as you mentioned, the cognitive function enhancement. So I think all the roads lead to, I think, mitochondrial health. So I do that for general mitochondrial health.
And now I'm assuming, obviously you take Urolithin A as a supplement.
Mhm.
And how much do you take of that? Of the
So I've
mito?
been on it. I was customer number 2.
Love it.
So I started. I've been on it for almost 4 years. I actually take a gram when I feel my body is giving me sense of low energy and fatigue, or when I'm traveling. Actually, one of the things that I up the dose, but the standard dose is 500 milligrams. So sort of the maintenance dose. If you already feel you have good diet and you have good energy levels, that's the dose I usually tell people to go on. A lot of people come in and say they have difficulties doing exercise, or they feel their bodies are inflamed or they're fatigued. Then I tell them to go, first few months at a higher dose, and then once they see the benefits. So I've been taking a gram for a long time.
Are there side effects?
This is an as natural and safe molecule you can ever find. So as I mentioned, we have about 50,000 plus people who are in the world taking this. I've done randomized trials on about 1,000 of them, and we have not seen. I think the closest side effect I've heard people say is some people saying, "Well, I have too much energy. What do I do with it?"
Oh,
And then
God.
I tell them, "Well, you have to go for a run, or
Not usually a problem for most people. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, so let me ask you this. So you take Urolithin A, and then obviously you're talking about vitamin D supplementation with maybe creatine and branched chain amino acids.
yeah."
What other supplements do you take personally or have taken that have helped you in the past?
For a while, I did take omega-3 supplements a
Hmm.
lot, just because I one of the regular blood checks I have, my whole family has a high triglyceridemia, and it was found, even though it was not linked to the diet, that I had high triglycerides in it.
Hmm.
So omega-3 I like for that reason, but a lot of times the problem being a vegetarian is finding the right source of
Right.
omega-3. A lot of them non-fish oil, etc. So I don't take it regularly, but wherever I feel the need, I do take omega-3.
Algae oil, is that what you do
Yeah, so
for?
most of
Yes.
them
Okay.
are the
Yeah.
DHA, EPA is coming
Yeah.
from the sort of the algae sources
Yeah.
of omega-3. Probiotics, sometimes when I've gone through some sort of GI disturbances, I do take certain and Akkermansia is actually, there's some good options right now with Akkermansia, and I think some of them work for me, some of them don't. So I kind of go
Yeah,
through
I'm
to see.
curious about that because I've been wanting to try the Akkermansia supplementation as well. I haven't done it. I've mostly tried to do probiotic foods because I believe that honestly, you can do a lot through fermented foods. And since my gut health is pretty healthy, I think I've tried to just up. I used to have 0 to 1 a day. Now I have 3 to 5 servings a day. But I am curious about the Akkermansia because I think that's something that
Yeah.
um, is new and exciting too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, if they're taking a lot of fermented foods, that's the right approach, to be
Yeah.
honest. If you're taking your yogurts and, eating kimchis and things like
Yeah.
this, that's probably the right approach. Now, the one thing with probiotics, and I've run a lot of probiotic trials in my former life, is, a lot of them, as you take it orally, a lot of them die in the acidic environment of
Yeah.
the stomach. And so you're never really sure if they're actually going to the target where they're
Yeah.
supposed to seed and grow and confer all the health benefits. And I've seen, at least on an N of one, if I can say, and if I look at the field, actually switching over time after a few months of using one strain versus another helps, at
Mm,
least personally me. Akkermansia is a fascinating example. And there's not one strain of Akkermansia as a whole species. They are linked to these very healthy. It makes endogenous GLP-1. So
yeah.
itself, it has a story in the current sort of trend of GLP-1 drugs. And then it's such a great probiotic for metabolic health. The science looks really good.
Yeah, it's an exciting one. But yeah, that's a very good point about probiotics in general being killed with the acidic environment. Why choose probiotic foods over probiotics? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, where possible, people should stick to food first. That I totally believe in. That again, and same with the Urolithin A story. If you and actually for that reason, I actually developed a test so people can test with a few drops of blood, know if their body is making Urolithin A and at what levels, and then they can switch. Because 20 years in this industry, I've realized that we all have been taking vitamin C and zinc, and I even cannot tell you where it goes and how much
Yeah.
body needs and how
Yeah.
much gets absorbed. So I think this sort of precision nutrition,
Mm,
if I can tell you that this is the gut bacteria you're missing in the gut and you should supplement it because it's linked to XYZ kind of down the road, then you should take it. And if you can get it from the food, go for that approach first. So I'm food first, but if for a lot of people like me, with my gut microbiome being short, I have to rely on direct supplementation.
yeah. I want to make sure that there's so many people listening and watching that want to know, that may not know the link between urolithin A and skin health. I think that is an area that's fascinating. So I have to tell you the story of the first time I met Ian, who's your counterpart, here, a person on your team. I was at a conference. I think it was a biohacker conference last year, and he had this amazing tool that could analyze your skin age, I think it was like a photo, right? Like a photo tool. We were talking about the effects of urolithin A on the skin health and all that stuff. And I found it so fascinating because I think it's very abstract when you talk about, okay, increasing mitochondria in your cells, right? Because even if it feels like, okay, I understand increasing muscle strength. Like that part makes sense to most people. But I think the skin health piece is really attractive because even for someone like me who understands mitochondrial health, understands muscle strength, if you tell me that something can improve my skin health, it is very, very exciting, especially if it's not a cream or, I mean, if it's not like a typical, like, cosmetic
Mhm.
thing something that actually has science behind it. So tell us a little bit more about how it can help your skin health.
The two reasons we went into skin health and longevity was a mitochondria are present in every cell type, right, except
Mhm.
red blood cells. So skin cells it's a muscle and a neuron have the highest abundance, but a skin cell, which has a lot of immune cells as well, they have hundreds of mitochondria in each skin cell. So that was one of the, and we were looking at the skin of people who were in their 30s versus in their 60s, 70s, much like we did with the muscle earlier on. And we saw the main defect, in addition to collagen pathways going down, was the mitochondrial pathways going down in
Mhm.
the skin of a 60, 70-year-old. And that gave us an idea. The second was the big gut skin axis, much like the gut muscle axis and
Yeah.
the gut brain axis, that I always think postbiotic or our gut microbiome is like a polypharmacy that is dispensing these nutrients that are
Yes.
beneficial to us, and these go to different target organs, skin being one of them. The third sort of side note was a lot of our early oral nutrition or advanced nutrition consumers were starting to come back and ask exactly, hey doc, what am I supposed to feel? But I can tell
Yeah.
you, I think my skin is getting better. And that triggered this idea that why don't we start making topical products? And so we did what we always do is we first did all the science. We did about 4 randomized clinical trials in sort of the postmenopausal and men, women, and different skin types, etc. And we saw that topical application of urolithin A led to sort of a skin renewal, which meant that now your mitochondria, which are also collagen producing factories, were producing more collagen, etc. and that led to better skin health. And so I don't see it as a cosmetic or a supplement. I see all these as really advanced healthy longevity tools that we are providing to the people around the world.
Well, I can tell you that, coming from the, world where women are really marketed lots and lots of tools to anti-age. And
Mhm.
I would say that probably 90% of them either don't work or are just basically targeting the insecurities of aging, right? And so having something that has science backing, I think, just listening to you, I was thinking to myself, like, where is my Urolithin A cream? Because I think I need to start using it again. But is it something that you would have to use even if you're taking the supplement form, or is it something that you would only use if you weren't taking the supplement form, like a cream based one?
Great question. So that's actually a study we are doing right now,
Okay.
is to see if taking the oral and the topical is going to give an even better effect than oral alone or topical alone. But the whole idea of giving topical was it would go to the target organ immediately, right? When you take
Yeah.
the oral pill, 90% gets absorbed in the GI, and then the rest goes to target organs, and you will have some benefits associated with it. But I think the topical approach of trying to tackle not just intrinsic aging, which is the mitochondrial decline in skin, but also by putting it directly, you're counteracting what I call extrinsic aging, which is photoaging. So, which is the main culprit behind sort of, the harsh UV rays our skin is battling every day, or the pollution our skin, or the irritants from your soap, even, that your skin is getting exposed to. So that's where I feel the addition of MitoPure as a sort of anti-inflammatory couples to its mitochondrial effect and works great.
That's really interesting. So it gets absorbed through the skin
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
can get into this is, I mean, I don't know about most people listening, but I think for me, this is so interesting because I think we hear about all these creams and things to do for our face, especially as we're getting older. And this is something that actually has current clinical trials done, data behind it. So it's really, really exciting. I loved hearing more about that part as well. Is there any other thing that you're really excited about with what your Lithin A can do for us that we haven't covered yet? I know, we've talked about a lot of different areas, but what are you most excited about?
So two areas I'm very excited about, and this one of them comes, now as the research grows, it's just not me and my great team of scientists and advisors doing the research. A lot of top groups around the world. So, for example, professors at the Buck Institute of Aging now they've got a 3 million grant to study the effects of taking long-term Urolithin A on its impact on cognitive health, because that's again a problem of aging, right?
Yeah.
The neurons have also, similar to muscle cells, have very highest abundance of mitochondria, and they're finding great effects on how they can actually reverse a lot of the cognitive decline with aging. So this is an area I find fascinating that I think will grow. And for me personally, I think the area where we are doing a lot of clinical research is on immune health and how we can rewire somebody who's beaten cancer, for example, post-cancer patient walking out with all their good immune cells damaged as well as part of the chemo radio, and feeling a bit fatigued, and how we can sort of we're trying to see where is an actual need and where we can hit and provide and the research evidence. So immune health is something where rewiring the mitochondria can boost immunity with aging is a big research area for me personally.
Love that. I mean, I have to say that for me, the concept of urolithin A was so exciting and interesting that I wanted to try it to see it for myself. And I've been taking it now for over a year. And I definitely think I'm not regular. I don't think I'm regular about anything, but I try, but I've definitely noticed that there is a difference in my energy levels. But the problem with me, I think, is that when I do something, I do a lot of things at the same time. And so that's why we need clinical studies like what you have, is to really separate out what is actually helping and what is actually doing something versus, when you're also sleeping well. I also started to, manage my stress a little bit better. And so I think it's a lot of things in one, but it's really exciting. The skin, science, the cognitive health science and the muscle science, I think is really, really exciting. So I wanted to thank you for sharing all of this
Sure.
clinical information, the research information, and kind of how to apply this to our life. Like whether you take Mitopure or not, knowing about urolithin A, I think is so important to, improving your health. Like you want to probably learn, if you're someone who hasn't ever heard about this before, maybe you want to take the test to see if your body's able to make urolithin A. I think you have a test that people can take, correct? How do they get that
Yeah.
test?
Yeah. It's not commercial yet, but
Yeah.
Ian can share the link. It's part of an ongoing sort of virtual clinical study that people can sign up on it, and you'll get a very nice looking kit. You'll have a pomegranate juice, and you'll have one sort of our product for daily use, and you can compare. You'll just have to give a little finger prick, a few drops of blood, couple of 2-3 drops of blood. There's what we call a dry blood spot card, and that goes to a lab, and we're able to tell if your body is naturally making it or not, and the levels you can see with supplementation.
I love it. Thank you. We'll put that link. I'll get it from Ian and we'll put that link in
Yeah.
the show notes. So tell us, where do we learn more about you, the work that you're doing, about Mitopure, et cetera?
Sure. So folks can go to timeline.com. They can see all the research, the news, and the products. But if they really want to dig deeper into the science, they can go to Mitopure, mitopure.com, and learn about all the science behind it.
I'm not going to lie. After we get off this, I'm going to bring my Mitopure bottle to my parents, because after talking to you this whole time, I'm like, why don't I give it to them? This is their like the real population that could benefit from this immensely. In addition, I don't do that with a lot of things because, as you can imagine, I talk about a lot of things, I research a lot of things, but this conversation has been so illuminating. And I really want to thank you, because I think I knew about it, but not in this depth and not with the clinical trial. So I hope this was helpful to everyone, to try to figure out, how to improve their own gut health, their own urolithin A levels, and more about Mitopure in general. So thanks so much for being on here. I really appreciate your time. And I know it's evening there, so go enjoy. It's probably already sundown, right? For you, at past 7? Almost.
Almost.
Yeah. So beautiful Switzerland. Where in Switzerland are you?
Close to Geneva, in a small city called Lausanne.
Oh my gosh. This sounds so amazing. So thanks again. Thanks for everyone who is watching and listening. Join for another episode of Save Yourself next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Shara.